All right, hey everybody, TG Watkins here. Let's see, should have everything up and running. Looks like we are connected to, let's see, YouTube and Facebook, but I think something might be up on that one. Not exactly working very well. Let's see. So yeah, we'll see if that's working. Hopefully everybody's getting some streaming on over there. If not, we're over in the Moxie group, and we can always send and post this as a recording later. All right, so yeah, we got lots to talk about today. Let's see, we got Tesla up here. I was looking at this earlier. Big picture, I've been trying to short this thing. We just put a little position on yesterday, and I still think I'm going to be right. It's just a matter of getting the right timing on this one. And the biggest reason why I'm looking at this is if we look at the higher time frame, this is what I've been talking to the Moxie traders about, is that I'm kind of seeing that there should be a pullback happening in the market generally out there. We had Jerome Powell speak yesterday. He basically reiterated everything that he said during the FOMC and didn't say that he was interested in really changing any of his narrative. And the market popped originally on that, and then chopped around a little bit. And actually ended fairly high, but I was like, I'm not sure I believe this, and I'll tell you guys why in just a second. So coming in with Tesla, this kind of configuration that I see up here, basically the first move off the low and straight up like this, that's what I call the first move. And it seems to me that it's had a pretty decent run. But usually at this point, we should be expecting that there's going to be some sort of pullback, maybe a flag, but typically a pullback. It can take a few days, couple weeks, and I would be expecting price to kind of come back down and somewhere in here retest the low area, and that would be the second move. That would be the pullback. So I'm looking for that to begin and see if that can happen, and then we can get a second move, like the next bigger upside move to happen once that occurs. So I'm looking at the higher time frames to see if this is going to be kicking in that way. And then if we look at the the daily chart and the hourly chart, this thing is extremely overbought. So we can see that we are way, way, way outside of that third ATR. We can also see that there's a giant gap here between price and the weekly, daily EMA. It's just out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it really is. And so the question is, okay, when is this thing going to start rolling over and start coming back in order to, find some support? Like, it's way too high. It's going to be coming down at some point. So that's what I'm looking for. And I was looking for today to actually be underneath the 15-minute 50 and start making its way down. Well, instead, it wanted to go up, so I just cut it quickly, and then we'll just look for the next step, the next opportunity for price to actually come back down and start being guided down by the 15-minute 50. So I see that, and I think, so let's see, Boeing was another one that we were kind of looking at. It's fine, it's doing the same thing, but you can see it's also very, very overbought, and I'm just waiting for this thing to come on down. And an example of what I'm looking for something to come down would be like this on Mara, on the crypto miner. So what you can see is right in through here, you can see how price started to get underneath the 15-minute 50, and again, underneath the 15-minute 50, and then breaking the hourly 50, and then getting rejected by the hourly 50. So this is kind of the stuff that I'm looking for and seeing if we can capture that with the Moxie indicator and on Tesla. Some of the other cryptos, like Hut and let's see, Can, Riot, Hive, they have moved up, but they're starting to show signs of negative divergence. And yeah, so exactly like this, we're seeing price up, the Moxie indicator down. In fact, there's your Moxie price trigger. It's also running into the daily 200. So I'm seeing stuff that is really building a case that we should be expecting a pullback in the market. And the question is this pullback that we're going to be getting, is it going to be into strength or not? And let me show you another example. If we look at the SPY, the S&P directly, this is kind of what I'm talking about. So if we look here with the S&P, let me take this off. So if we look, if we look at this, and you compare it to, say, Hive or Riot or anything else like that, you notice how it was running into the underside of a downtrending daily 200. Well, notice that price did move down. In fact, it even broke the daily 50. But because the Moxie indicator was above zero, that meant that this price below the 50, but the Moxie indicator above zero was what I call a trampoline move. So when the Moxie indicator is staying above zero like that, that's saying, hey, energy and momentum is still positive, even though price is moving down, and even though price is broken below a certain moving average that we would usually look at it for as support. So that's a bullish pullback. That is a pullback into support that I'm looking for, and I'm looking for that on things like Mara. I want to see if it comes down into, say, the daily 50 with the Moxie indicator above zero, and yeah, I want to see if that works. And if we look at, as I said, with Hive, it's kind of the same thing. You see how Hive is running into the 200, and that it could be coming all the way down to the 50, but look how high the Moxie indicator is above zero. So this is the kind of stuff that I'm looking for. This is great. Like, this is what we want, ebbs and flows, right? We want to see, it's great that we've got this big first move. That's awesome. I kind of view that as the shot across the bow. Like, okay, these things are working. Something's working. Now I just need to see confirmation of it. And so the confirmation will be when price comes down. If it can find some support and then move up, that's going to be awesome. That's going to be a really, really easy trade for us to step into and discover and find. I'll just give the other side of it in case this doesn't work. For those who are bearish and thinks that this is still a bounce in a downtrend, which could be, it definitely could be. We really need to make sure that we think about that as well. So if that were the case, then a price would come down here. It might bounce around a little bit, and it'll just keep going down. And if you want to see, I'll show you examples of both these sides. So again, sticking with Hive, if you want to see the bearish example, here's price coming down to the daily 50. You can see it just bounced around a little bit, and it continued to fail. Okay, so that's the bearish side. If this pullback is not into strength and does not work, and we do not find out that we can go long on something like this, then you'll see here it's just not going to work, and it's going to keep breaking down and sinking and going down. If you want to see something that does work to the upside, and I've shown this example before, look at this, RPay. Okay, it doesn't matter what it is, we're just showing the charts, but look at this. Here's price coming back down to the daily 50, just like Mara, and you can see here there's the Moxie price trigger, and that was the next move. Okay, so that's generally what I'm looking for. I want to see if it holds or if it doesn't, and that is just going to be factual. That's going to be what we're looking at. So, Austin, good to see you over there on YouTube. If anybody else has any questions or anything else that you guys are looking at, I'm here for you. That's what we're out here for, looking around the market. You guys see different things than I do because I don't always trade what you guys trade. So yeah, let me know. Let's see. Cap, been watching it for a month. So let me get over there. With daily Moxie divergence, finally under the hourly moving average. And Moxie below zero, so let's see, holding on the weekly 8 and the daily 50, looking for those to break. Okay, so yeah. So let me show you. So there's Cap. And then we can talk about General Dynamics, Lockheed Martin, because those had some similar things. And this CAT situation is actually very similar to gold and Boeing, to where you can see here price got really, really overbought. There was a huge gap between price and the daily 50, got way outside of that third ATR. And instead of coming down like that to find support at the daily 50, what did it do? It went sideways to find support. Now, as it turns out, it still didn't actually use the daily 50 as support. It just kind of went sideways, found enough support for whatever reason, time or levels, and decided to continue to move up. Fine. That is one way that things work. Again, Boeing was doing that. Gold was doing that. It looked like they should have pulled back a little bit more. They didn't pull back. They just went sideways and then moved up. Okay. But basically, this next run up was getting a little bit tired. It was a little bit too much. We could see that because you could see price was higher, the Moxie indicator was lower. So that what that was indicating to us is that price kept going higher and higher and higher, but on less and less energy. That's what that negative divergence is. And then we could see that even near term. Look at this. Even like the last couple of moves leading into earnings, you had higher highs, but lower highs with the Moxie indicator. Again, near term negative divergence. So what Austin is looking at here now is we are no longer, in an uptrend to where we are above the hourly 50 or trying to figure that out. You are now actually underneath a downtrending hourly 50, and the Moxie indicator is below zero. So yes, Austin, if you're looking to short this thing or looking for it to not go higher, then it does seem like this is starting to work that way. And basically, what we should be seeing is the best thing we could be seeing if you wanted to go down is price would exactly follow the hourly 50 to the downside. Of course, we kind of have to give a little bit of leeway because sometimes things can pop up over the 50 before rolling over. And if that happens, I would call that an inverse trampoline move. Like, remember, price should not be over the 50 if the Moxie indicator is below zero. So those are inverse trampoline moves. So yes, CAT on the hourly chart would either exactly get rejected by the hourly 50, or if it pushed over it, it would not be a good long. It would actually be a false long, and I would expect it to roll back over to the downside at some point. And let's take a look at the weekly chart. The only other thing I see here, yeah, you're talking about the weekly 8. You could see here on the weekly chart, it was getting overbought by getting outside of that weekly 3rd ATR. And it is back down here at the weekly 8. But the weekly 8, or the 8 EMA in general, the fastest of the moving averages compared to like the 8 and 21. Sometimes people use 5 and 13. Some people like to use the 10 and the 20, like whatever. Whatever that faster moving average is, the 5, the 8, the 10, if price is in a really good trend, it will follow that moving average, which is exactly what you can see here. It's been following that moving average pretty well. But when that strong momentum runs out and there needs to be a deeper pullback, the next thing to look for is the 21 EMA. 21, 20, something like that. So this is all fine and dandy that this has been a really good move, but if this starts to not be able to hold it, like if the 8 EMA can't hold it anymore, expect price to at least go down to the 21 EMA. So that is generally speaking what I would be seeing there. So yeah, I wouldn't disagree with what you're seeing. If you want to give it a shot, it looks about right. And yeah, just see if it can work for you. Let's see, I wanted to show you, let me show you general dynamics. That was one I was thinking of. So here, and this is one that worked out well with the Moxie indicator, you can see how it can take some time though, especially with these bigger stocks like CAT, General Dynamics, Lockheed Martin. They're big stocks, they're slow, they're not the most exciting. But what you can see is right in through here that price eventually, because look at this, here's that gap between price and the daily 50. What did it do? It eventually needed to get down to the 50. Now it went to the 50, it didn't move up. And why? Because part of the reason you can look here is you look at the hourly chart, look at this, the Moxie indicator was below zero this entire time. And so the Moxie indicator was telling you, like, even though you had kind of these like little spurts to the upside, they were all false. They were all false longs because the Moxie indicator was not above zero. So that's kind of the same thing of what I'm dealing with Tesla right now, is I do think Tesla is going to pull back. I'm just trying to find that exact moment. So little moves up like that should basically be not trusted to the upside. And eventually you can see that not only did that with the Moxie indicator below zero, notice that the hourly 50 was below the 200. So again, that fast moving average was below the slow moving average. And that helped indicate that this thing was not a good long candidate, that it probably wasn't going to keep going up as it ran into the daily 50. And so eventually, finally, it just ran into enough resistance and, buying quit, maybe selling caught in there. But look, there's your Moxie price trigger on the daily chart. Like how's that for timing? That is really great timing. And you could see it coming. You could see that price was going sideways for weeks. And you could see here the Moxie indicator just kept going down and down and down and down on the daily chart. And then finally, not only did you get the Moxie price trigger, you also had price getting stuck and rejected by the underside of the daily 50. So something like this, even though it was kind of like a slow train wreck, it was showing you signs the entire time that this was not a good long candidate and you should be prepared for it to move down. So I think the reason I'm showing you this is because I think CAT is basically the same thing. And if we look, so that was General Dynamics, Lockheed Martin, you can see the same thing, like almost identical as far as looks and structure. Basically, there was a huge move. There was a giant gap between price and the daily 50. And instead of going down, instead of pulling back in order to fix that gap and find support, it flagged. And a lot of times you'd be looking at this and you say, oh, well, this held up so well. This has been going sideways for so long and flagging that this should actually be good. This should be strong. So if you're only really looking at, and even a squeeze, you even have a squeeze, you should be looking at this and saying, hey, this has held up so well that as it comes into support, which I assume would be the 50, you're thinking, oh, it should go up like this. But then it goes down. You're like, what the heck? Why did it go down? Well, the Moxie indicator can help you with that. Because if you look right here when price started to approach the daily 50, and you look at that where the hourly chart is, there was never there was never a long setup on the hourly chart. Why? Because look at the Moxie indicator. It was below zero the entire time, even though price kept trying to push over the hourly 50. It's an inverse trampoline move. Price should not be over the 50 if the Moxie indicator is below zero. This is why I'm trying to tackle Tesla short. So, but you can see again, it's like a slow train wreck. You can see how many times did price try to go up like this, and how long did price really just go sideways until finally you got the 50 below the 200, and then you had the 8 cross below the 21 on the daily chart, and you finally had price break below and start to fail below the daily 50, and then it finally started to let go and move down. So it's like a slow train wreck. So Austin, just be prepared that with CAT, you might be dealing with the same thing. I think this is part of why when we do I don't do options, because I never know quite when this stuff is going to work, and I just don't want to deal with that theta component. So that's why I like stock, and it works well for me and all that. Even Deere, if we look at Deere, you could see kind of the same thing. What did Deere do? Big move, and this one did actually start coming down to the daily 50, bounced a little bit, but notice that the Moxie indicator did give you pretty good sell entries. You could see the red arrows. Yes, they popped green for a little bit, but there was really no green setup. The green came late. And again, this is like Moxie specific rules. So if you guys are new to me and this doesn't make sense, when I teach it and we go over these rules, they will make sense. These green arrows showed late, and you can see they immediately got reversed anyway. So, and you can look at the Moxie indicator where there was not a setup. So anyway, you can see that basically the 50 was below the 200 the entire time. Everything was trending down, and Deere started to move down. So yeah, it makes it pretty good. It seems likely that CAT is probably going to be following as well. Let's see, thoughts on the Russell small cap futures going down, target to the downside. Yeah, I agree with this. I've been looking for a pullback. Okay, what is the Moxie indicator? The Moxie indicator is a momentum-based indicator, and it's just trying to tell you if energy is positive or negative, and by how much. Like there's divergence. So you can see here price went up, but it did so on less energy. So there's your negative divergence, and that kind of helps tell you that you're running out of energy. You're running out of gas in your tank. And then you can see the Moxie price trigger. That indicates when the indicator goes negative. Basically, when energy and momentum goes from positive to negative, it's usually a pretty important thing to know, because you can see these price triggers actually show up at a pretty good spot. So yeah, that's what the Moxie indicator is in a nutshell. All right, so small caps, let's look at the IWM. Yeah, totally. So Don, I just made a post about this to the Moxie group. You see this negative divergence? So yeah, I think we're due for a pullback. I'm seeing we had a great January. We even had a pretty strong start to February. And then I think the icing on the cake was when Jerome Powell spoke at the FOMC and basically said, yeah, we're seeing disinflation, and we're okay, and we're going to be, we're probably pretty close to pausing for interest rates. So, as far as the Fed goes, I think the Fed is going to be a less important thing that the market cares about. We've pretty much done all the tightening that they are going to do right now. Inflation has been coming down according to them. And now the next conversation is what is recession? What is that going to look like in the yield curve? Because we know the yield curve is inverted. And now everybody says, okay, it's 100% chance that we get a recession after the yield curve inverts. But the question is when? When does that happen? And it can take some time. And it's not necessarily about when it inverts, it's about when it uninverts. So the recession doesn't usually start until after the yield curve uninverts. So, yield curve, here's the zero line for the yield curve. Yield curve comes down like this. It can stay down like this, and it can keep down and stay down for a long time. And it's really not until it starts to curve up like this and then move up like this that then you start to get a recession somewhere in this area. So just because we are uninverted or inverted doesn't necessarily mean like recession happens now. So there could be a little bit of a, honeymoon phase to where the Fed is done tightening and the economy's still kind of strong and a recession hasn't happened yet, to where we could catch a little reprieve with the downside in the market. And I think we're seeing that with January and February. We could also be seeing it because, everybody is taking their licks in 2022 and everybody wrote everything down, and 2023 is a fresh year. So there could be something about that. But we know we need to keep on our toes. Things change. So just stay nimble. But yep, Don, yep, I'm looking for a pullback in the market. I think you could also see here we got really overbought on the weekly time or daily time frame. So yeah, just start expecting a pullback. Yeah. All right, ENPH. And yeah, guys, again, I take questions, whatever you need, whatever we're looking at out there. Just let me know. If you have any questions, that's what we're here for. And if you have any other questions, you want to look into what I do, then just come over to profitpilot.com and you can check that out. All right, so ENPH, thanks for asking me after earnings because I don't really like to try to assess anything before earnings because it's a complete crapshoot. You never know how things are going to react to earnings, and so it's like earnings are no match for your technical analysis, basically. All right, so what I'm seeing right here, and people asked me about this before, I said I'm really pretty hesitant to want to go long as price is running into the underside of a downtrending hourly 200. Okay, it's still in a downtrend, and you can see here that even here price is in a downtrend on the daily time frame. I'm really not seeing much in the way that tells me, oh, this is going to be bullish. And if you are going to be bullish on this, the best thing I could try and even say is that there's a 50, 200, 50 situation happening here on the hourly chart. So if you want to go long, then see if price somewhere in here can hold. Hold the 50, maybe get back on top of the 50, the Moxie indicator's above zero, and see if it can do something. And if it can, then maybe it'll come all the way back up to the daily 3rd ATR or the daily 50. Okay? But again, this could just be a bounce in a downtrend. It could just be a bounce up to the daily 50, run into the daily 50 and roll back over. So we're in a precarious position to where, yeah, you can trade a move, but you need to realize that basically most of the moving averages are down. The hourly 200 is down, the daily 50 is down, you still have the daily 8 below the 21. I mean, if you're trying to go long, then you're really just trying to catch a counter trend move at this point. It's like a bounce in a downtrend. Now, if you want to go short, okay, then we have more that we can work with. The hourly 200 tends to be resistance. The move up for earnings ran into the 200, the daily 200, so running into resistance. You do already have the 8 underneath the 21, so that's in a downtrend. And you also have the daily 50 in a downtrend. So you'll have to see if that kind of works out too. But it's a tough thing, and fortunately it's after earnings. But for now, I'd kind of lean towards the downside unless the hourly chart can start to catch some support. But you're honestly going sideways. That's the other thing. You're literally going sideways. So until we get a little bit more information about is it going to hold these moving averages and go up, or is it going to get rejected by the moving averages, move down, we don't have a super clear picture because you're really kind of going sideways between a lot of different moving averages. So if it's not an easy answer, that could also be your answer. LabU. So Todd, we got out of this. Looks like that's a good reason. We basically took 2 trades on this, and I think we got out break even for both of them. And I liked this initial move where it got over the 50 and then started to break past the 200. But what started to concern me is that this thing really didn't get going anywhere by the time I started to see the market started to get tired. And what that looked like was also that there was a gap here between price and the daily 50, while the daily 50 was still below the daily 200. So this hasn't swapped sides yet. It's trying. I think that LabU will eventually go higher, but this is just the first move. So Todd, you're in the Moxie group. I know you get this. But what do we have? This is basically the first move. And what am I looking for then? The second move. Price pulling back into the daily 50. So the first move is price just getting past the 50. The second move is going to be the pullback. So, and what I noticed is we were trying to trade it in through here, and we got a little bit of a move. It didn't go as high as I thought it might have. And at this point, it looks like it's trying to do first move, second move, and then we'll have to see if it can go. So that's why we got out. And you can see here the Moxie indicator starting to fire red. And we'll just have to watch this move down along with the rest of the market pullback that we're kind of expecting and see if this eventually finds some support and if it's going to go higher. If it can't do that, then expect price to come down here, maybe bounce around a little bit, and then keep going down. I mean, it's as simple as that we're looking for. But in this kind of no man land where you're over the 50, but there's a gap between price and the 50, it's a little sketchy. That's what we're kind of looking at and saying, yeah, that's a problem. Morning, Toro Joe. Let's see. Shorted Nike. Oh, currently up 45%. Nice. Yeah, you must be doing some options. Now the hard part, take profits or let it work. Looks like it can break down further. Yeah, I think this can go further. Remember, I think the entire market is getting ready for a pullback. And if you look at this, so disregard this ticker here that was with that little flash crash that the market freaked out on. So ignore that. And if you look here, you can see what is happening in through here. It's a narrowing of the moat. That 8 and 21 distance is starting to narrow. And it looks like it's about to cross. Now, there could still be a first move, second move situation. So, it could still come down here, bounce, and then come down. So yeah, Toro, this is the challenging part with probably options, especially shorter dated ones, is can it get all the way down to the daily 50 right now? Or like I said multiple times yesterday in our session, is it going to come down, bounce, and then come down? If you are nimble enough, or if your option has enough duration and you can handle a little bit of a bounce before it comes down, then I would say hang on to it. But if you can't, then just look for an area where price seems like it might bounce and then get out, and then you can try again on the bounce like that. Okay. But it does look like it wants to go further generally. And also Toro, if you look here on the, look at this. There's your Moxie price trigger. And then, here is your inverse trampoline move. And then price broke down. This is exactly what I'm trying to look for Tesla. Now, this is why I'm trying to short Tesla. But you can see it just wasn't quite ready. But I'll be looking to get in this again, because I still really think that this is valid on the short side. It's just a matter of time. So it kind of popped up. I don't think it's going to do much, and I think we're going to get a move to the downside. Yeah. All right. Hey, Loco No Joko. Good to see you, man. Let's see. NVIDIA, NVDA, craziest large cap you've ever seen. Yeah, I've been watching this thing. Now, Loco, let me first ask you this. You wouldn't be trying to go long on this, right? I know that's like a loaded question, but I'm looking at this and thinking, wow, I'd be really coming late to the party on this thing. Here was the Moxie price trigger. This is where the 8 crossed the 21. And if I'm trying to get long up here, man, I'm coming in as the cops are about to arrive to that party. So I first would not be looking long. Sure, there could be a couple moves, to the upside, but man, this would just be really late and not the right opportunity to go long. Now, do we go short? Maybe. That's what we were talking about yesterday in the Moxie room. I would definitely not be long. So if you were long, I'd be exiting. I'd be taking the cash and saying thank you. And then the question is, well, do you want to go short? Well, trying to short anything in an uptrend can be a little bit challenging, because you can clearly see here that they do have a lot of energy and they want to keep moving. So finding that exact right moment when this thing rolls over can be challenging. They also don't have to really roll over. They can also go sideways for quite some time. Look at General Dynamics, look at Lockheed Martin. They can go sideways for a very long time. So, that's the challenge. Perhaps if you guys trade options, maybe the more lucrative thing would be like, okay, if it's going to go sideways to down and definitely not up, then we can sell calls up here. So there's an opportunity that you can do that I don't through stock, because if I trade stock and I short this, I need it to go down. If you guys are just selling calls up here, you just need to make sure it doesn't go higher. So, and I think that we're getting to a point where this thing's probably unlikely to go higher. It hasn't confirmed yet. That's the thing that we left off yesterday. I put a little carrot here, just a marker, since we talked about it yesterday. And I was telling the subscribers who are looking at shorting this too, I said, well, it hasn't exactly broken yet. It's still technically over the 15-minute 50. The hourly chart still in an uptrend. Everything's still moving up. It has not rolled over and broken down yet. So that's why if you are wanting to short this, you're going to have to be a little bit more patient, actually wait for it to come down and then get underneath moving averages and basically do like what CAT looks like here. You want to see this. You want to see price get underneath a downtrending moving average. And you can see here that this example on the hourly chart, you want to see what that looks like on a 15? Right there. See how that's the same thing? You want to see price get underneath a downtrending moving average. You don't want to try and short it here as price is still going up along the moving average. You want to wait until it rolls over. And so if you look at NVIDIA, And if you look here closely, maybe tomorrow, but definitely not today, not yesterday. Because what's the deal? It's still over an uptrending moving average. So you'd be guessing so far. This is why I got out of Tesla, because at the time that I was shorting Tesla yesterday, and maybe it changed by the end of the day, but I was looking right here. I wanted to see the price actually got underneath the downtrending 15-minute 50, but that changed today, so I got out. And so the next thing I'm looking for is the next time that price can get underneath the 15-minute 50 and go down like that. Let's see, NVDA. Been short since 220. Okay, not bad. I mean, you're right there. You're hunting around at it. I think you're going to eventually be right, but the question is when and how much further until you're right. But yeah, you were. I can see why. Well, 220. See, if you had shorted it here, okay, I could see why, because price was underneath the 15-minute 50 and it looked like it wanted to go down. But notice it got on top of the 15-minute 50 and then continued to hold the 15-minute 50, so it invalidated that setup. So really, you need to just kind of, yeah, you still need to wait. So if you got in at 220, unless you got in here, you're still trying to guess at where the top is. You haven't actually confirmed it or picked that top. You're guessing. Let me show you what was. Trying to think of another one that actually worked well. Maybe, yeah, like Hut. See, at least, and I could be wrong tomorrow. These things can prove me wrong tomorrow, but I'm at least doing this because look at Hut. You can see that it should, if this is going to work to the downside, the beginning will be when price gets underneath the 15-minute 50 and starts getting guided down by the 15-minute 50. Because remember, a stock's not going to go up if it is under a downtrending moving average. It might bounce a little bit, but like, what's the trend? The trend's down. And a stock is not going to go down if it's over an uptrending moving average. It has to break those things. So most of the time it can be as simple as that. It's just that sometimes you get into areas where the market wants to make you really not understand what's going on like that. And so that's where timing and market context really helps. All right, guys, I got to get going, and yeah, I hope you had a good time out there. Good luck with this market. I do think that things are going to be. I think we should get a pullback. Yeah, now, I'm kind of bullish on the pullback. So I do want to see the pullback. I'm looking forward to it, and I want to see if this pullback eventually comes into strength. So keep an eye out for that. But I think it's about time for a pullback, so careful with things on the long side. And if you guys have any questions, profitpilot.com, or come on over and say hi, and we'll see you there. All right, everyone.